Want to learn English by actually enjoying the process? Stories help you remember words and phrases without even trying. When you listen to something interesting, your brain naturally picks up how the language works. If that sounds good, hit like, subscribe, and stick around. Today's story? Someone ended up in the wrong tour group at one of the most famous places in Istanbul, Hagia Sophia. He had always dreamed of visiting Istanbul. The sounds, the smells, the call to prayer echoing over rooftops, the ferries cutting across the Bosphorus, it all felt like a storybook city come to life. And at the center of that story stood Hagia Sophia. Once a church, then a mosque, then a museum, and now a mosque again, it held centuries of history in its giant dome and marble floors. He had booked a tour that promised access to hidden spots, local guides, and a calm experience. But once he arrived in the square outside Hagia Sophia, he realized things weren't going to be so simple. The place was packed. Tourists swarmed like bees. Some groups wore matching hats, some held flags, others were just clusters of people orbiting a fast-walking guide. He checked his phone and found the meeting point, somewhere near the fountain. The guide was supposed to be wearing a green lanyard. He walked closer and spotted a group standing near the fountain. The guide had a green lanyard just like the instructions said. Without thinking much, he joined them. Nobody asked questions. They made room for him and he nodded politely. The group began moving. The guide led them through the main entrance, explaining things in clear English. It all seemed right. He admired the walls covered in ancient mosaics, the golden dome above that seemed to float, the layers of Christian and Islamic art woven together. He followed the group as they paused at arches, admired giant circular plaques with Arabic script, and whispered through the echoing space. But then something odd happened. The guide pointed to a tall wooden structure near the back wall and began explaining its connection to the Ottoman sultans. She spoke quickly, switching between English and French, then German. That wasn't mentioned in his tour. Still, the information was interesting and he kept following. The group moved into a side area behind a velvet rope. He hesitated for a second. Was this allowed? Was this part of his tour? But no one stopped him, so he stepped through. They climbed a narrow staircase. The walls felt ancient. The group entered a quiet upstairs gallery, where only a few other people were scattered. The guide whispered something in German again and everyone laughed. Except him. That's when it hit him. This wasn't his group. He checked the app on his phone again. His tour hadn't even started yet. It was supposed to meet at the opposite side of the building, in 15 minutes. Panic flickered. Had he just followed a private group? Would they notice? Would he get in trouble? He looked around nervously, but nobody seemed bothered. In fact, the guide was too busy explaining a mosaic above the doorway to notice. He stood quietly near the edge, listening to the tail end of her explanation. He didn't want to interrupt. After a few moments, the group began moving again, heading down the stairs. He stayed behind, pretending to admire the artwork. Once they were out of sight, he quietly slipped away, back through the gallery, down the stairs, and into the main hall. The energy was different now. He wasn't nervous anymore. He was amused. Soon he found his real group waiting near the correct side of the building. The guide had a green lanyard too, but the group was smaller, quieter. He joined them this time for real. As they started their tour, he realized something. He hadn't wasted time at all. In fact, he had learned a ton. Different guide, different language mix, but same building. Same history. And somehow, the mistake had helped him see even more of it. He had picked up all kinds of words: architecture, restoration, gallery, Ottoman, mosaic. And not just the words, but how they were used. How the guide described the color of stone, or the way light moved through the windows. It was like a live English lesson hidden inside a sightseeing tour. When the correct tour ended an hour later, he smiled to himself. Getting lost, or misplaced, in the wrong group had actually made the day more memorable. And his English? It had grown without him even realizing. Did you enjoy that story? Without trying too hard, you just learned a bunch of useful English, how to follow a narrative, understand past tense, and see how vocabulary lives in real situations. If that sounds like your kind of learning, give this a like, subscribe for more, and drop a comment. Have you ever followed the wrong group or ended up in the wrong place? Let us know, because mistakes often make the best stories. And don't forget, there's a new one waiting right here every single day.